Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 13th episode of Story in which the third Hokage finally resolves to do something about Naruto's treatment, and he seeks the assistance of someone known for influencing things from the shadows. When Naruto has everything he needs, including an elder brother who will do anything to protect him, what could possibly go wrong? Please subscribe and smash the like button. Now, let's jump right in.
Naruto very casually ducked under a sweeping kick, the attack being courtesy of a rather tired-looking Fu. Standing back up, he quickly sidestepped to dodge the downward slash of a second Fu's water sword jutsu before he was forced to bring up his arm and stop another kick aimed for his head from a third Fu. Grabbing the offending limb firmly, the blonde lifted it up and threw the girl off balance before tossing one of his Hiruzen kunai off to the side and flashing to it just in time to avoid being cut in half by the other two Fus. The three perfect copies of the girl all frowned and began channeling more of their chakra into their bodies. Taking off at respectable speeds, they all tried to surround the blonde on all sides. Naruto pursed his lips and leapt up in the air, narrowly avoiding the three girls as they lunged at him at the same time. Spinning around, he created three long golden chains from his chakra and wrapped them around each of the girls' ankles before yanking them and tossing the three into a small pile a few feet away. Landing gracefully, Naruto smiled happily at Fu as she and her clones got back to their feet. Not bad. You should probably learn not to have you and your clones attack all at once like that, but otherwise you're doing well, he said approvingly. Fu pouted and crossed her arms. It would be better if you would let me use more of them. What's the point in having so much chakra if I can't expend a little of it and make my own army? She asked irritably. Fu, trust me when I tell you that strategy does not work. It does not work at all. What's worse is that Izo will go out of his way to hurt you for doing it if he sees you doing it. The blonde shuddered at the memory. Seriously, Naruto very casually ducked under a sweeping kick, the attack being courtesy of a rather tired-looking Fu. Standing back up, he quickly sidestepped to dodge the downward slash of a second Fu's water sword jutsu before he was forced to bring up his arm and stop another kick aimed for his head from a third Fu. Grabbing the offending limb firmly, the blonde lifted it up and threw the girl off balance before tossing one of his Hiruzen kunai off to the side and flashing to it just in time to avoid being cut in half by the other two Fus. The three perfect copies of the girl all frowned and began channeling more of their chakra into their bodies. Taking off at respectable speeds, they all tried to surround the blonde on all sides. Naruto pursed his lips and leapt up in the air, narrowly avoiding the three girls as they lunged at him at the same time. Spinning around, he created three long golden chains from his chakra and wrapped them around each of the girls' ankles before yanking them and tossing the three into a small pile a few feet away. Landing gracefully, Naruto smiled happily at Fu as she and her clones got back to their feet. Not bad. You should probably learn not to have you and your clones attack all at once like that, but otherwise you're doing well, he said approvingly. Fu pouted and crossed her arms. It would be better if you would let me use more of them. What's the point in having so much chakra if I can't expend a little of it and make my own army? She asked irritably. Fu, trust me when I tell you that strategy does not work. It does not work at all. What's worse is that Izo will go out of his way to hurt you for doing it if he sees you doing it. The blonde shuddered at the memory. Seriously, not worth it, he muttered to himself. The girl sighed in defeat. Fine, I'll take your word for it. But you are going to teach me more stuff, right? She asked hopefully, letting her clones dispel. The blonde nodded. Sure, whatever I can without getting in trouble. And I still have to teach you more about using your Baiju's chakra. You're pretty good with it so far, but you could be much better, he said. It isn't my fault that no one was willing to teach me about it. Everyone in Taki just assumed that Jinchuriki knew how it worked naturally, Fu muttered. Hey, I never said it was your fault. And to be fair, no one ever really wants to train a Jinchuriki, whether they think we need it or not. Training those like us is an extremely dangerous and taxing thing to deal with. There is always the risk that we could go insane from the Baiju's chakra and go on a rampage, or that our seal will break and the Baiju will escape and go on a rampage, or maybe we will just become violent on our own and go on a rampage. Actually, now that I think about it, all of the problems with Jinchuriki seem to involve a rampage of some sort, Naruto said, scratching his head with a curious expression. How odd, he added. Fu giggled lightly and walked up to the boy. I guess it's a good thing that I get to train with you and Izo then, isn't it? Izo's really good with seals, so my seal won't break, and you can stop me if I go on a rampage just like you did last time, she said. Yeah, I think I would rather not do that. I mean, yes, I could stop you, he said. But that doesn't mean it doesn't really hurt when you get a hit in. You almost shattered a couple of ribs the last time we fought. The girl blushed and looked down in embarrassment. Sorry, she said quietly. Nah, it's fine. At least I don't have to worry about anyone trying to take you without a fight, he said. Now how about you and I go and get something to eat, he suggested. Sure, Fu chirped. But not ramen. You have eaten nothing but ramen since I got here. It can't possibly be healthy, she said, pursing her lips slightly. Oh come on. Not you too. It's bad enough that my family won't let me eat ramen, I don't need you in on it as well, Naruto whined. Reaching out and grabbing the girl by her shoulders, he continued. Please don't do this to me. You're the only person I have left who will let me eat nothing but ramen around them, he pleaded. Wow, she said. And people say I'm childish. Naruto just pouted at her pathetically. Okay. I'll let you eat ramen, she said in defeat. But I want something else. The blonde whooped in joy and hugged Fu happily, much to the girl's embarrassment, if her blush was anything to go by. Thanks, Fu, he said. Fu almost smiled, only for her smile to twist into a mischievous smirk that was completely unnatural on her otherwise innocent-looking face. Wrapping her arms around the blonde, she returned the embrace as she brought her lips to his ear. Hey, Naruto, wanna know a secret? She asked in an almost seductive whisper. Naruto froze as he immediately checked to make sure that he wasn't stuck in some deceiving genjutsu. The way his fellow Jinchuriki had said that sounded far too suggestive to actually be her. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any signs of there being any genjutsu, so he decided to just see how things played out for now before jumping to any conclusions. Okay, he said unsurely. Before he even knew what was happening, Naruto's world exploded into blinding pain as he collapsed to his knees with his hands clasping protectively over his groin. A waterfall of tears flowed from his eyes as he stared up at the happily smiling girl who would need him in the privates, an expression of pure betrayal etched painfully on his face. Fu laughed at the blonde. You forgot to call an end to the fight, Naruto, she said in an attempted lecturing tone. And didn't your mother teach you not to let your guard down around girls? She asked in mock innocence. Naruto pouted at her pathetically. She did, he admitted. But I never expected that a friend would go so low as to use such an underhanded tactic against me. Yeah, I wouldn't normally think to do something like that, but Mikado and Kurotsuchi have been helping out with my training as well as… I don't know what to call it, she said unsurely. Teaching you how to fit into society? Naruto suggested, wincing slightly as pain continued to pulse through most of his body. Yeah, but that sounds so boring, she said. Anyway, do you want to admit defeat yet? She asked curiously. Naruto smirked viciously. Nope, Fu wasn't prepared for the blonde to erupt with red chakra that quickly formed into a long tail that wrapped around her leg. She was lifted off the ground and tossed like a rag doll across the training field. Landing with a painful thud and skidding on the dirt for a few feet, Fu finally came to a stop, a look of surprise on her face. The young Namikaze took a deep breath and recalled the Baiju's chakra back into his seal. Standing up, he walked over to Fu as she shakily stood up and tried to shake away her slight dizziness. Now the fight is over, Naruto said. By the way, despite how much it really hurt, it's good to see you're not afraid of going for where it hurts in a fight. Just don't hit me there again, or I will cut you. The female Jinchuriki paled slightly and nodded her head. Okay. I understand. Please don't cut me, she said in mock nervousness. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her. I'll take your apology into consideration, he said in mock seriousness. But still, good job. The two were interrupted suddenly as a female Anbu landed next to Naruto in a kneeling position. Lord Namikaze, the woman greeted. Lord Sundaime has requested both yours and the other Jinchuriki's presence, she said. Do you know what it's about? The blonde asked. I am not sure, sorry, she answered. Naruto waved her off dismissively. It's fine. You're free to go, in fact, you're dismissed for the day. Go out and enjoy yourself, he said. The Anbu woman looked up at Naruto in surprise, only to be met with his toothy grin. Sir? She said unsurely. Go on, visit the bathhouses or something, he insisted. The woman stared at him for a few seconds before standing up and bowing. Thank you, sir, she said quickly before running off to enjoy the rest of the day. Lord Namikaze? Fu asked with a questioning gaze. Yeah, it's amazing how much respect I get from the people that actually know who my father is. The fact that I'm a leading member of Root also helps, he explained. Okay, I'll buy that, Fu said. But why is that? I have only ever seen female Anbu around your state. I would think that there would be more men in your forces. Naruto laughed sheepishly and scratched his head. Actually, there is a reason for that. Izo kind of made a rule that only female members of Root can come into the estate unless there is an emergency. He said it was so he at least had something nice to look at whenever he was forced to receive bad news. It makes sense since he was the one who helped us enlist most of our female members, he explained. He's a bit odd, isn't he? She said thoughtfully. But he's also powerful. Fu looked at Naruto curiously. What does his chakra feel like to you? Does it feel wrong to you? She asked. Naruto sighed as he and Fu began to make their way out of the training grounds of the Namikaze estate. Izo is, to put it simply, not normal by any meaning of the word. His chakra is probably the most obvious sign of that, but it's also something he doesn't like getting mentioned. If I were you, I would be careful as to what you say about that around him. He won't hurt you for it, but he won't be happy about it either, he said. Why is he like that? Strange, I mean, Fu asked curiously. There are quite a few reasons for Izo's uniqueness. In short, he was Orochimaru's personal test subject for years after being created. Anything other than that and you will have to ask him personally for an explanation, Naruto answered. Don't you know? The girl asked in surprise. She had thought that Naruto would know everything about his brother. It was kind of what she had assumed was normal in a sibling relationship, not that she had any real idea on what a sibling relationship was like. Oh, I know everything. But, just as he keeps my secrets, I keep his. Unless he says otherwise, I won't tell anyone anything more than what has already been made common knowledge to the public, he said casually. I guess that makes sense, the girl said, her lips pursing in slight disappointment at not learning anything. All right, let's go and see what the old man wants to talk about. Then I'll get you whatever you want for lunch. Sound good? He asked. Fu nodded with a smile. Yep, sounds like a plan, but not before I eat as much ramen as I possibly can, he muttered mentally. He failed to notice Fu as she narrowed her eyes on him, knowing exactly what was going through his head. Mikoto was right, he is easy to read, she thought. Now I just have to do what she said and make sure he doesn't eat too much ramen. Shouldn't be too difficult, right? She asked herself unsurely. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. The first thing you need to do in order to activate the curse seal is simple. You need to focus on an emotion, preferably a strong one. Izo lectured from his spot across from Anko, both of them being seated in the middle of a clearing in Training Ground 44. Anko smirked viciously as she honed in on the first emotion she could conjure up. Not anger, Izo said quickly, shattering her progress almost instantly. Why? Anko asked irritably. Despite the changes made to it, Anko still found it extremely difficult to think about the curse seal without getting angry. The idea of using any other emotion to use it just didn't appeal to her in any way. However, she also knew that Izo was only trying to help her, so she would listen to him and try her best. The last thing she wanted to do was be the cause of losing another potential friend, something that she was already severely lacking in numbers. Look, anger would work, in fact it works very well. You might like to know that that particular emotion is exactly what the curse seal was designed to act on, to feed on. Orochimaru made it like that. He made it so that every time someone used it, it would draw out their anger and make it consume them. Do you really want to use it as he planned for it to be used? He asked. No, the woman grumbled, pouting like a child who had just been chastised. But if I can't use anger, what am I supposed to use? It's not exactly like I'm the most emotional person. Look, I'm not even going to pretend to care about this little moment you seem to be having, so I'll just cut to the chase, Izo said. I do not care. Pick an emotion and stick with it. I don't care which one so long as it isn't anger or sadness. The latter isn't as bad, but I am not going to watch you burst into tears every time you want to activate the curse seal. There is only so much female emotion I can deal with on a daily basis. You're just a complete delight to be around, aren't you? Anko muttered, sighing deeply as she actually thought about what he was saying. What would you suggest? She asked. Izo shrugged. No idea. It all depends on you, he replied. What is the next emotion you feel most strongly? Can you focus on it enough? Are you going to be a little bitch about it? Everything factors and I can castrate you with a single chopstick. Just take a moment to remember that the snake summoner said warningly. Hey, I'm trying to help you. Don't go killing the messenger, or rather don't go castrating the messenger, he said. Why the hell do women always aim for there anyway? It's totally unfair. I mean, you don't see us guys aiming for your private. Sanko snorted. That's because most guys want to keep those parts undamaged for later use. Not that I can really blame them though. If I were a guy and I saw me, I would probably want to bang me too, she said with a bit of pride. That is a terrible mental image, Izo droned. Do you want me to help you get rid of it? The snake summoner asked suggestively. After all, I'm sure there is still quite a lot for me to do to thank you properly for all you've done for me, she said slyly. Izo smiled at her sincerely. Maybe some other time, he replied simply. For now, we're just going to focus on getting you to activate the curse seal. If it would help, try meditating and focusing on a memory that is linked to a positive emotion. The purple-haired kunoichi grumbled as she crossed her legs and took a deep breath. She straightened her posture and closed her eyes in meditation, a skill she had thankfully not learned from Orochimaru. It had actually been Jiraiya of all people to suggest that she look into it after she was brought back from her ex-sensei's laboratory. Despite his perverted nature, the old toad sure gave good advice. As she tried, rather lazily mind you, to find a positive memory to focus on, she became oddly curious. Opening one of her eyes, she looked at Izo questioningly. What emotion do you use? She asked suddenly. Izo pursed his lips, having not been entirely prepared for that particular question. I guess I could be a real asshole and tell you that I focus on my never-ending lust for beautiful women, but that would just sound pathetic. To be completely honest, I can't actually focus on a single emotion at all, he said, earning a perplexed look from Anko. Anko opened both eyes and frowned. Why not? She asked irritably. So far, Izo was just sounding hypocritical to her. Here he was trying to force her to go out of her comfort zone to focus on an emotion other than anger, yet he wasn't even doing it in the same way. If he had an alternate method for activating the seal, then he should show her and let her decide which one was better fit for her. Because I'm insane and focusing on one thing at a time is almost impossible for me to do, he answered simply. Anko narrowed her eyes on him. Then how the hell do you activate your curse seal then? I don't activate it, he said. Well, not really. I just altered the seal so that it activates through a blood sacrifice, and so long as I pump enough chakra into it. Think of it as a weird variation of the summoning jutsu, it works almost exactly the same. So technically, I summon the curse seal. And before you even ask, no, I will not alter yours to do the same. You're a big girl, you can deal with the normal way. The woman glared at Izo childishly. I hate you, noted. Now shut up and get back to meditating, Izo ordered sternly. Anko smirked mischievously as she once again took a calming breath and closed her eyes. Don't think you can just order me around whenever you want. I wouldn't try my luck if I were you, she warned playfully. Actually, as your superior in the root forces, I can order you around whenever I want, so long as it doesn't reveal the fact that we are in the Foundation. If you want to get really technical, I can actually order you to do anything I want, and I do mean anything, the teen said with a playful grin. Getting some good ideas, are you? Anko asked curiously, her lips stretching into a similarly playful grin. Can you blame me? When you wear such thought-provoking clothing, he said. I suppose not, she said, smiling happily as she relaxed further into her meditation. Anko was actually rather surprised at how peaceful she felt, which she supposed was a sign that she should probably meditate more often. She had been slacking off on it a bit since she no longer had any real problems with her seal. For the first time in quite a while, Anko felt tranquil and happy. It was just a coincidence that it happened to be while she was flirting with a boy. Her thoughts were interrupted as she felt a strange tingling running down her neck. Opening her eyes, Anko watched as her curse seal glowed and began spreading out across her skin, working its way up her neck and over half her face, as well as down and around her arm. It finally stopped once it reached her left hand. Once it stopped glowing, Anko felt an almost immediate flood of chakra and something else rushed through her system. She suddenly felt several years younger. Not that she was old, but you get the point. This feels so good, she moaned out, continuing her self-observation of the seal. It was actually a little strange. The seal had extended over her skin in a weird swirling tribal pattern, which she actually thought looked really cool. From what she could tell, judging from the warm sensation that was pulsing from the markings, the seal was covering her neck, left side of her face, her shoulder, and her left arm down to her hand, but didn't go any further than that. Anko didn't care personally on how much skin the seal covered, she was more interested in how much chakra it was flooding her system with, which was a lot. Well, congratulations, Anko. You have managed to activate the curse seal. Partially, at least, Izo said. Anko's eyes widened. Partially? She asked. You mean this thing gets stronger? Yeah. Why do you think there are 2 stages to its complete activation? He asked. Not that I plan on letting you even go near the second stage until I deem you ready, but it's still there in case. As for this one, the first stage, you have at least unlocked it, so every time after this should be easier to use. With a little patience, and some intensive training, you can learn to use this stage to its limits and make yourself just that much more powerful, he explained. Oh, I like the sound of that, Anko said. At this rate I might even make actual Jonin rank, not that it really matters. I mean, rank doesn't mean all that much en route, Izo said offhandedly. Anko smiled. Yeah, but ever since I was little I wanted to prove to everyone that I was good enough to make Jonin rank. That goal only got more important once everyone started thinking less of me when Orochimaru betrayed the village, she explained. Fuck them. Fuck all of them. Who cares what they think? When it comes down to it, what really matters is what you think about yourself, and who's there to support you in your decisions, Izo said. That was a bit mature sounding, Anko said in surprise. I have my moments, he replied. Now, I don't want to hear any more about you trying to please everyone in the village. Naruto had the same stupid idea and I beat the shit out of him for weeks until he dropped it. I am not afraid to do the exact same to you before he could react. Anko disappeared in the sunshine. A sudden weight on his back informed him of where the woman had reappeared as she hugged him from behind and rested her chin on his shoulder. Izo wasn't sure what she was playing at, but so far, he wasn't opposed to it. You promised to be rough with me, Izo-kun? She whispered seductively. Izo, much to his credit, maintained a straight face. I am considering it, yes, he answered calmly. Anko grinned as she crawled around from behind him and sat herself down in his lap facing him, draping her arms around his neck playfully. You sure know how to spoil a girl. I do hope you aren't just being so nice in an attempt to take advantage of me, she said slyly, only to realize that Izo seemed a little apprehensive and wasn't really reacting to her. What's wrong? I thought you were into messing around like this, Izo chuckled. Oh, I am. I've just never actually expected to get this far. I'm sort of at a loss at what to do here without overstepping my boundaries and offending you, he said sheepishly. Well. Who knew you were such a gentleman at heart? Anko said in amusement. As for what you do, well, it really depends on where you want this to go. Am I interrupting something here? A female voice asked suddenly. Anko and Izo turned to stare at a masked Mikado, who was no doubt burning the image she was seeing into her mind with her Sharingan for later blackmail use. In spite of his usual demeanor, Izo actually blushed. Anko, however, simply glared at the woman. Actually yes, you are interrupting something, the snake summoner said irritably. Oh goody, I've always wanted to see what happened when you caught one of your children in the act. So far it's not anywhere near as funny as I thought it would be, Mikado said with a pout, not that the two could see it. We weren't even doing anything, Izo said. Not yet we weren't, Anko said with a grin, reaching up and raking her fingers through the teen's hair. In fact, we were only just getting to the part where things get interesting, she purred. Hey, I never said I was going to move this on to that, the boy countered. Are you telling me you would refuse the offer if I made it? Anko asked with a knowing look. No, Izo said, pouting childishly. Look, I'm sure you two have a lot of personal stuff to do with each other, but I'm actually here for a reason, Mikado interrupted, gaining the two's attention. The Hokage wants you to be present in his office. I believe that he has something of some importance to discuss. Aw, too bad, Anko whined. I guess we'll just have to continue the fun when you get a free chance, she said suggestively. You have been summoned as well, Anko. The Hokage has a surprise for you, the one Tsuchiya said. You know what the old geezer is calling us for, don't you? Izo asked. Of course I do, but don't think I'm going to tell you. I plan on enjoying watching all of you being surprised, she replied offhandedly. See you there soon, she said with a wave before disappearing in a sunshine. Izo sighed. I guess we should get going then, he said. You should be able to deactivate the curse seal just by willing it to turn off. Anko, without even showing intention of getting off of Izo's lap, pursed her lips in concentration and watched as the tribal-like pattern receded back into the 3 tomoe mark it always had been. She shrugged at the sudden loss of power and the warm feeling that accompanied the seal. Deciding to get up off of Izo, she stood and helped him to his feet as she went. Race you to the Hokage Tower? Anko offered excitedly. Izo hummed thoughtfully. I guess that could be entertaining. See you there, he said with a grin before racing off without warning. Anko's eyes widened. Hey! That's no fair, she exclaimed as she took off after him. You're supposed to establish the rules, you bastard. Hiruzen watched in amusement as a badly beaten Izo was dragged into his office by a particularly happy-looking Anko, if her smile was anything to go by. He watched as the purple-haired woman stopped in confusion as she took notice of the numerous other people in room, including all of Team 7, Fu, a masked Mikito, Danzo, and a really weird-looking boy who Anko recognized as one of Danzo's personal root subordinates. Making a small hand gesture, the Sundaime ordered Anko to move up and join the rest of the group, which she did, bringing Izo along with her. It's good to see that I'm not the late one for once, Kakashi mused. That's only because you were ordered to bring us in with you, Sakura said, gesturing to both herself and Sasuke. "Oh, so that's how you got him here," Naruto said in surprise. "I'm impressed. That aside, I'm glad that we are all here now," the Hokage said. "Now, as I imagine, most of you are wondering why it is you are all here in the first place, and we will be getting to that soon. First, I believe young Sakura has something she would like to ask me." Sakura smiled nervously as she was put on the spot so suddenly. She had tried to ask the Sun Daime earlier, but he had never been available, and when she tried to talk to him while they were waiting, he had just told her to wait. Actually, I was wondering if I would give me permission to access some of the restricted areas in the Shinobi library. Being a Genin, I can only gain access to so much," she said quietly. Hiruzen quirked an eyebrow at that. "Might I inquire as to what you wish to look for in there?" he asked calmly. The old Sarutobi was not at all afraid of the girl looking into anything too bad, she just wasn't that kind of person. No, he was more worried about her possibly finding something and handing said information over to a less cautious person, such as Sasuke. There were very good reasons for the restricted areas in the Shinobi library, and one of those reasons was because several of the jutsu in there were extremely volatile, and the books often had information that really couldn't be trusted in the mind of a Genin. Sakura glanced at Naruto awkwardly before staring at the Hokage and steeling her resolve. "I would like to access information on Fuinjutsu, preferably anything on learning the art," she said. Before Hiruzen could even say anything, Izo had leapt up and put himself right in front of the girl. "So you want to learn Fuinjutsu, huh?" he said, seemingly inspecting the girl as he started to circle her. "Yes," she answered shakily. Izo chuckled darkly. "Are you prepared to put in the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears to learn? Are you ready to not only learn it, but to master it? To lose sleep, social time, and sanity in the name of greater knowledge?" he asked sternly. Sakura tried to shrink under the teen eyeless gaze. I think so," she replied softly, her voice barely being audible. "I guess that will have to do," Izo drawled. "Are you saying you will take Sakura on as a part-time apprentice in the art of Fuinjutsu?" Hiruzen asked curiously. He was actually somewhat hoping the boy would. Konoha was sorely lacking in skilled seal masters, much like the rest of the world. Izo shrugged. "Yeah, why not? It'll be fun," he said. "But I want Anko to assist me." "What?" said purple-haired woman exclaimed suddenly. "You want me to help you teach some spoiled little brat something that I know next to nothing about?" "Actually," the Hokage interrupted, gaining everyone's attention. "That is part of the reason as to why you are here, Anko," he said vaguely. "Oh Kami. You can't possibly be thinking about doing what I think you're thinking of doing," Kakashi said in horror. "Yes, well, it has come to my attention that Team 7 is not working out as I had hoped it would. While your mission records are for the most part perfect, your interactions between each other are not," he said. "Clearly, putting 4 of you together was a bad choice on my part, but thankfully a solution has arisen. I will be switching around some of Team 7's members, while also creating another Genin team for those who are left over," he explained. "I am getting a serious sense of foreboding about this. I'm not sure what, but something about this arrangement is going to be bad for my health," Izo said offhandedly, only to be ignored by everyone. "Naruto and Izo are to be removed from Team 7 effective immediately. Their replacement will be Sai here," the Hokage said, gesturing to the strange boy standing beside Danzo. Danzo and Kakashi shared a stern look. "I trust Sai will be safe under your care," Danzo said. "And I trust that he won't cause too many problems," Kakashi countered. Sai himself calmly walked up to his new teammates and smiled awkwardly. "Hello. I hope we can work well together," he said, bowing to Sakura and Sasuke formally. Sure. I suppose that's possible," the pink head of the team replied unsurely. And Sasuke grunted. "Just don't get in my way." "So what happens to us?" Naruto asked. "Oh, that's quite simple," Hiruzen said with a smile. "You and Izo will be joined up with Fu here to be Team 28. I trust that you'll do well together." "Okay, that's cool and all, but why am I here again?" Anko asked. Hiruzen smiled almost mischievously. "Well, I figured that a newly appointed Jonin would want to be present to meet her new Genin team," he said. Anko gaped at the Hokage for a few seconds before turning to stare at the grinning faces of what was now her Genin team. "You mean I'm finally a full Jonin?" she asked, receiving a nod from the Sarutobi. "So you decided to ruin that moment by making me babysit them?" she yelled, glaring at the old man. I thought we could have some fun, student-teacher style," Izo said with a perverted grin. "Oh, don't you worry. That is still going to happen, whether you want it to or not," Anko replied playfully. "But I don't want to get stuck looking after a bunch of brats. I will pay for all of your sake and dango for an entire month, Hiruzen offered. Anko didn't even need to hear the offer properly before she was forcefully dragging her team out the door. "Come on kids, looks like I have knowledge to impart to you after all," she exclaimed gleefully. Kakashi sighed and put away his ever-present book. "I guess we should be going as well. It will take some time to establish teamwork with a new member, and the Chunin exams are less than a month away," he said as he ushered the team out of the Hokage's office. Hiruzen relaxed back in his chair as the door closed. "I think that should work out well for us," he said. "Hopefully," Danzo replied. "Sai should be able to keep a close eye on Sasuke for now, and also on the Haruno if she truly does delve into Fuinjutsu. However, do you not think that having two Jinchuriki on one team could be seen as unfair in the Chunin exams?" he asked. "Not at all. Even if that was to be an issue, I have altered the exam in such a way that it won't even be relevant," Hiruzen answered. "I do wish you would share these things with me beforehand," Danzo muttered. "It would be far more beneficial for both of us if we were on the same level." I suppose that makes sense. But I guess now you understand how I felt for all of those years that you thought working in the shadows was a good idea. I never could tell if you were going to jeopardize the safety and stability of the village," the elder Sarutobi countered. "Touché," Danzo grumbled. Hiruzen chuckled and pulled out a large file from one of his desk drawers. Placing it on top of an already sizable pile of files on his desk, he pushed them over to the side of the desk that Danzo stood at. "In that file is all of what I have planned for the Chunin exams, including backup plans and possible Black Ops operations that can be completed by using the event as a distraction. Hopefully we can get some things done and set up all the pieces for our true plan," the Hokage said. "And the other files?" the War Hawk asked. "A list of potential problems from the other villages," Hiruzen said offhandedly. Danzo opened up one of the files and quirked an eyebrow. "You're allowing the Sound Village to send Jinan here?" "Yes. I thought it would be a good idea to see just what my old wayward student is trying to do with that little village of his. I don't plan on being carefree about it though. The team will be under high observation for the duration of their stay in the village, along with every other team from the other villages as well," the Hokage explained. "A sound plan, I suppose," Danzo said, ignoring the unintentional pun. "But I do not see the Jonin instructors of these teams being easily spied on. What do we have set in place to keep them from causing trouble?" he asked. "I'm not sure on that myself. Don't worry though, I believe a solution will make itself known soon enough," Hiruzen replied. Danzo hummed thoughtfully. "I will look through these and offer my thoughts on your plans. For now, it might be best to focus on adding the new Jinchuriki to our forces. I understand that Naruto has been giving her a basic rundown, but I feel that we should move things along a little faster." Hiruzen sighed. "I suppose you are right. However, the councils are still undecided on what we are to do with her. The civilian council are against it altogether, the Jonin council are impassive at best, and Koharu and Homura are being as difficult as always. In fact, I believe that they suggested I hand the girl over to you at one point. For specialized training and conditioning. I believe they said those two are still under the impression that I would use a Jinchuriki as a weapon to gain complete control over Konoha. I think that they believe I would allow them a high standing after I take control in repayment for their support," Danzo said emotionlessly. "They merely want to maintain their illusions of importance for as long as possible. You two do realize that I am still here, right?" Mikado asked irritably. Both old men turned and stared at her for a few silent moments. "Sorry," they said in unison. "Whatever. I'm going home. If you two need me for anything, reconsider," she said as she walked out of the office. "That woman is strange," Hiruzen said. Danzo rolled his eye at his old friend. "You have no idea," he mumbled. Anko grinned widely, effectively worrying the three teens standing before her. Izo and Naruto were more or less confident that the woman wouldn't be able to do anything too bad to them. Fu, however, was far more fearful of the snake summoner. It also didn't help that they were all standing in front of a large chain wire fence with signs that read "Warning" and "Keep Out" on 'em in bold. "Alright brats, this here is Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death," she stated cheerfully. "I know," Izo drawled. "We were just here like 20 minutes ago," Anko grumbled under her breath as she pulled out a kunai from her weapons pouch. "Any and all smart-ass comments will be dealt with via a game of Dodge the Kunai," she said irritably. "Anyone want to volunteer?" Everyone shook their head no. "Good. Now, I don't want to hear any whining, complaining, arguing, crying, or any of that stupid bullshit that so many Jinan think they can get away with. Your childhoods are officially over and done with," Anko said in a lecturing tone. "It is now my job to mold you three into respectable shinobi, and I intend to do just that so as to not miss out on my free sake." "And Dango, this is not going to go well," Naruto mumbled quietly, already knowing that things were going to be annoying at best. "The ground rules of my team are simple," she said. "You will not question my authority, you will respect my authority, you will bow down to my every whim, and if by some miracle I decide to let you live long enough to make chunin, I will offer to buy each of you one celebratory drink. I also refuse to have anything to do with your emotional stability. If you want a shoulder to cry on, find someone else. I think I'm going to like this," Izo said thoughtfully. The straight-to-the-point, rough kind of approach to training. "Should be interesting, hey? Did I say you could talk?" Anko snapped. "Well, not exactly," Izo said. "Exactly," Anko yelled. "No one fucking talks unless I say they can, or by some miracle you have some really important news to share. By the way, any and all comments about my state of dress at any given time can and will be responded to with violence. You look nice by the way," Izo commented offhandedly. "Ah. Holy shit, you crazy bitch," he yelled in pain as a kunai found itself buried in his shoulder. "That's what you get," the snake summoner said with a smirk. "I complimented you. That is no reason to fucking stab me." "I didn't stab you. It isn't called stabbing when you throw the blade," Anko stated casually as she pulled out another kunai. "Oh, just fucking perfect. You skewered me," Izo groaned. "I thought it was tastefully done," Naruto said. "You stay out of this," Izo snapped. "Aw, Blondie's trying to be a teacher's pet. Isn't that just adorable?" Anko said playfully. "I'm not trying to be a teacher's pet," Naruto said with a pout. "I just thought we could get things moving along quicker." "Well, you thought wrong," Anko said cheerfully before turning her attention to Fu, who had been abnormally quiet so far. "What's the deal with you, brat? Ain't gonna talk?" Fu shook her head. "You said not to talk without your permission," she said quietly. "Aw, you listened," Anko said, patting the girl on the head. "Good girl." Anko quickly spun around on her heels and walked up to the gate that surrounded the training ground. Pulling out a set of keys from Kami knows where, she went about unlocking the several padlocks that held the gate closed. Pushing the large gate open, she gestured for the three teens to follow her as she walked off into the forest. "Okay, I have just under a month to get you three into shape for the upcoming Chunin exams, and before you even think about asking, yes, you will be entering in the exams. I am a fresh Jonin with her first Shinan team, so I will be flaunting you as my first major success in my career," Anko said happily. "And if you fail me, I will feed each of you to my snake." Speaking of your snake, where is Akira?" Izo asked curiously, having removed the kunai from his shoulder while they were walking. "Oh, she's here. Somewhere," the woman said vaguely. "She likes to go off on her own sometimes, so I let her wander around this forest." "That sounds worrying," Naruto said. "Just how large is this snake?" he asked. "Oh, about the size of a large python. She might have actually gotten bigger. Every time she eats she just seems to grow," Anko said flippantly. "I'm not even sure she actually needs food, she just keeps eating things to get bigger." "This is sounding better by the second," Naruto said, his voice dripping in sarcasm. "A giant snake that just eats things to get bigger. How is that anything but good news? Isn't that what all animals do though?" Fu asked in confusion. "I thought everything ate to get bigger." "Fu, there is a difference between getting bigger as a result of eating, and eating for the sole purpose of getting bigger," Naruto said. "The former is natural, the latter not so much, unless the animal is getting ready for some sort of hibernation." "Who would have guessed Blondie had a brain? I seem to remember you being a loud obnoxious brat when you were younger, not a speck of intellect in you," Anko said. "Didn't you ever think that maybe that was because no one ever took the time to teach me anything back then?" Naruto asked. "I learned a lot in the past 6 years." Anko quickly appeared next to Naruto and wrapped her arm around his neck. "Did you learn how to please a girl properly?" she asked curiously. Naruto froze mid-step, a slight blush on his cheeks. "Unfortunately, yes," he said simply, walking off quickly once he was done and leaving a gobsmacked Anko behind him. "Don't think too much on that," Izo said casually. "It was one of the main focuses on the seduction classes me and him had to take. We learned a lot of things that we neither needed nor wanted to learn, but I'm sure they'll come in handy one day." Both Anko and Fu took this time to stare at the brothers awkwardly as they continued to walk through the forest. "I call dibs on Izo, you can have Blondie," Anko stated sternly to the mint-haired girl. "What do you mean? Like, training partner-wise?" Fu asked in confusion. Anko stared at the girl strangely. "You are one clueless little girl, aren't you?" she said. Fu pouted. "Give me a break. I'm learning as fast as I can," she grumbled. "It's not my fault that I'm not good at understanding how all you people socialize. Bugs are so much simpler. Okay, I'm not interested in teaching some Aburame wannabe, so I will be helping you work on that social awkwardness of yours. Also, if you ever, and I mean ever, attack me with any bugs. I will cut you into tiny little pieces and feed you to Akira, Anko warned. Understood, Fu replied meekly. Good girl. Now, let's get moving. We need to reach a certain point before it gets too dark, the purple-haired woman said cheerfully as she ran off to take the lead of the group once again. The newly formed Team 28 continued through the Forest of Death until they reached a rather large clearing that had been set up in advance for something. There were targets stuck on the surrounding trees, both at ground level and throughout the canopy, several wooden training posts, a campfire in the center, and several large barrels full of numerous different types of weapons. The fact that most of the stuff seemed to be relatively used already only made things seem a little odder to the teens. Welcome to my personal training spot. I used to come around here every now and then to practice the basic stuff, you know, kunai and shuriken throwing, standard sword practice, some taijutsu style, Zonko said in a carefree tone. Now it's where we will be conducting our training as a team. I will expect all of you to find your own way here every morning to begin training, and if you're lucky you'll still be healthy enough to get yourselves out at the end of the day. Is that allowed? Surely you can't put us in any real danger, right? Fu said unsurely. Oh, I'm allowed, all right. As your sensei, I have the right to train in any way I see fit so as to mold you into successful shinobi and kunoichi of the next generation. If I want you to be cold-blooded killers, then I can do that. If I want you to be seduction specialists, then I can also do that. The methods for attaining such results are also completely up to me and me alone. Sure, I might not be able to actively cripple any of you, or murder you, or shatter your minds, but everything else is fair game, Anko explained flippantly. Anyway, you guys are allowed to come here whenever you want. I practically own this training ground, so don't worry about anyone intruding. Also, I would consider this a really big bonus too, since at least one section of the Chunin exams are going to be held in this very forest. Congratulations guys, you get an advantage, she said happily. Isn't that cheating? Fu asked. Of course not, Anko exclaimed. It's luck. As in you're all lucky to have such an amazing and sexy sensei such as me to give you an inside advantage on a potentially fatal exam. You seem to enjoy pointing out how great you are, Naruto pointed out. Perhaps you should contain your ego a little before you get adopted into the Uchiha clan, he commented cheekily. Ha, yeah right. Those pompous bastards would all turn in their graves if I was allowed to enter that clan. Not that I would want anything to do with them, Anko spat. But we didn't come here to talk a bunch of shit for hours, and what exactly did we come here for? Izo asked curiously. Well, I originally wanted to start our training immediately, but the Wakira got me bored of that idea. So, instead, I'm going to be taking Izo for a little one-on-one tutoring, while you other two can go off and do whatever you want, she said with a shrug. I honestly don't care what it is so long as it doesn't get me in trouble, Naruto sighed in an exaggerated fashion. Fine, he drawled as he walked over to a slightly confused Fu. Come on Fu, we can go and start on your Baijuu training if you want, he said, offering his hand to the girl. Okay, Fu said awkwardly as she grabbed onto Naruto's hand. Both teens disappeared in a flash of red, leaving Anko and Izo alone with their thoughts. You know, I still can't believe that he can use that jutsu. It's almost surreal actually. The whole world tried so hard to even get as far as being able to imitate the Hiraishin, and yet here's this kid who can do it without any effort, Anko said in slight awe. It took me almost 4 years to successfully break down the original Hiraishin seal and create the one that Naruto is using right now. It took several more months for him to learn to use this to an adequate level. As it is now, it is only just on par with the original technique that the Ondaime created, but it should get better the more Naruto trains with the Kyuubi's chakra, Izo explained casually. Anko tilted her head to the side. Huh? Why would the Kyuubi have anything to do with him using a jutsu? She asked. Because the jutsu is performed with a seal that I integrated into the seal holding the Kyuubi, which teleports the entirety of the Kyuubi's chakra to a desired marker. It is much easier to teleport chakra than it is physical matter. Thankfully, the seal can't go anywhere without Naruto, so he is taken along for the ride, hence the red flash, the teen explained. Okay, Anko said stupidly, staring at the boy with wide eyes. Forget it. It is far too complicated for me to explain in a way that makes any sense, Izo said tiredly. Anko smirked as she sauntered up to Izo and draped her arms around his neck. So, do we want to pick up where we left off? She asked softly. Izo pursed his lips. Is that what you want to do? He asked seriously. You'll never know if you don't take the chance, she said temptingly. Besides, I still owe you for all you did with my curse seal. You really want me to accept some kind of repayment for that, don't you? Izo asked in mild amusement. Anko frowned. I don't like being in other people's debt, simple as that. So, We can either have it and call ourselves even, or you can tell me what you really want and I'll do my best. Either way, I expect to be even by the end of the day," she said firmly. Izo chuckled lightly. "How about you let me walk you home, then you can treat me to another cup of tea, and we can call ourselves even," he said calmly before bringing his hand up and tapping on her curse seal. "In regards to this thing, I still intend on making a few extra tweaks to it over time, so I wouldn't worry about feeling indebted to me over it. I can also change its appearance for you if you want. I know how girls can get over things like that." Anko huffed playfully and released Izo from her embrace. "Fine, we'll have it your way," she complained. "And just so we're clear, you're the one who turned down an amazing night of sex with me. Okay, I'm sure I'll regret it later," Izo muttered sarcastically. "Damn right you will," Anko mumbled. "Now hurry up and get me home so I can get busy with kicking you to the curb. A real sweet talker you are. Ever actually tried being kind for once? Who knows, it might get you further than you think," the teen said cheekily. Anko hummed thoughtfully. "Nah, I'm good," she said, patting Izo on the head. "Nice try though. I respect your persistence." With that said, Anko began walking off with a teasing sway in her hips. Izo shook his head at her antics before gasping and clutching at his chest suddenly. His breathing became haggard as he stumbled slightly. Reaching out quickly, he grabbed onto a nearby tree to keep himself steady. He managed to hold himself up until the pain subsided and he was able to once again stand up properly. Shaking his head free of the dizziness that came with the pain, he spat out a large glob of blood. "Fucking hell, that hurt," he growled lowly. "Hey! Are you dying back there or what?" Anko yelled back to him from her place up ahead. "Hurry up, you idiot. I might still decide that you owe me a drink." Izo sighed deeply as he continued onwards after the woman. He could just tell that something weird was going to happen. If only he knew. Naruto and Fu appeared back inside the Namikaze mansion in a red flash. Fu led on Naruto heavily as she shook her head in an attempt to clear the sudden bout of dizziness. "I don't think I will ever get used to that," she said. "Yeah, it's an acquired taste," Naruto said awkwardly. "You two are going to make me sick," Kurotsuchi drawled. Naruto turned to stare oddly at the girl. "What are you doing here?" he asked curiously. Kurotsuchi raised her eyebrow at the blonde in such a way so as to show that she thought he was an idiot. Glancing down at where she was sitting, which happened to be one of the large lounges in the lounge room, she stared back up at the boy stupidly. "It's the lounge room. I'm allowed to be here. In fact, I've been sitting here for the past 3 hours waiting for either you or your brother to show up," the Iwakuno-ichi said irritably. "I want to know what the hell is being done about my being held against my will here. Have any of you even tried to contact my grandfather? Has he sent any notice to the Hokage? Just a little information would be really appreciated." "I have no idea," Naruto answered honestly. "I have been busy doing other things, so I haven't looked into it. If you really want me to, I'll ask the old man for you, could you?" Kurotsuchi asked. "I would rather get this whole situation sorted out sooner rather than later." Yeah, I get it. Your life is now suddenly so much more horrible because of a simple kidnapping," the blonde droned. "It isn't just the kidnapping. It's the fact that your stupid brother put that weird seal on me. Seriously, it's really weird having someone else control where you can and cannot go with the threat of pain and death. Makes me feel like a pathetic muzzled puppy," the girl said, her lips twisting into a scowl. "That's a cute mental image," Fu said innocently. "Would you do tricks for treats?" she asked. Kurotsuchi glared at the mint-haired girl. "I could kill you if it wasn't for your stupid overpowered boyfriend there," she growled, gesturing to Naruto. "Boyfriend?" Fu squeaked in embarrassment. "Overpowered?" Naruto asked in surprise. The Iwakuno-ichi quirked an eyebrow at the two and tilted her head questioningly. "You guys aren't a thing?" she asked in confusion. "Huh? Never would have guessed that with the way you two never leave each other alone." "Oh well, not my problem," she said, shrugging before laying down on the lounge. "Hang on a second. What do you mean overpowered?" Naruto asked, his eyes narrowing on the girl questioningly. "Like you don't know," Kurotsuchi drawled, rolling her eyes at the blonde. "Son of the Yondaime Hokage, personal student of the Sandaime Hokage, and Jinchuriki of the most powerful Baijuo in existence, there is nothing about you that is not overpowered," she said simply, before eyeing him with amusement. "Unless of course you have a small dick. That would make a little more sense, you know, keep it all in some sort of balance." Naruto's eye twitched violently as a light blush dusted his cheeks. "That is none of your business," he mumbled. "Sue. Is it small?" Fu asked curiously, glancing awkwardly downwards every few seconds. "Don't you join in on it too?" Naruto whined. "Why would you even want to know?" Fu shrugged. "Girl's curiosity," she said simply. "Look at that. She's already interested in your private parts. I say go for it, Blondie Kurotsuchi said mischievously. Shut up, Naruto snapped childishly. Ah, the little boy is embarrassed. Hey, and here I thought you were going to be more entertaining to pick on the pink-eyed girl said smugly. Too bad I guess, Naruto frowned. I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to ask the Hokage when we can ship you back home and out of my house, he said irritably. About time, Kurotsuchi said. A little gratitude would be nice. The blonde muttered. Thank you. You're welcome. Hurry up and go. I'm going. Good riddance. Goodbye to you too. With that over, Naruto disappeared in a flash of red, leaving behind a smirking Kurotsuchi and a confused Fu. What a wimp. I can't believe anyone thought he would make a good shinobi. How the hell is he going to deal with an enemy kunoichi if she tries to seduce him? Kurotsuchi muttered to herself, before looking up at Fu. You're shit out of luck, girl. That boy is way too dense to pick up on anything from the opposite sex. Might want to turn your interest to another boy. Fu's blush darkened slightly. But he saved me. He understands me, she said softly. Yeah, big deal. There are going to be a bunch of people who understand you, possibly even a few more who will save you. He ain't no one special, the older girl said. Either way, unless you make the first move, he isn't going to be returning them feelings anytime soon. Fu frowned. Maybe she mumbled to herself quietly. I guess we'll see, won't we, she said simply as she walked off. She figured that she might as well get things ready to train for when Naruto got back. Kurotsuchi let out a content sigh as she listened to the Jinchuriki's footsteps fade away. She honestly couldn't believe that she was getting so bored to the point where she was messing around with her captors' social lives just to pass the time. Then again, it was much better than wandering around the mansion doing nothing all day. At least this way she got some human interaction of her own. She sighed softly. If she had to spend any more time stuck in the Namikaze estate, she would probably go insane. Or maybe I'll just off myself before I get to that point, she thought to herself. Then again, they aren't actually that bad. People-wise. Perhaps if Iwa decides to cut its losses with me, I could just ask if they would keep me. Being a servant to them can't be that bad, she reasoned. It also helps that Izo isn't too bad in the looks department, she thought with a smirk. Her eyes suddenly widened in horror. I did not just think that. Fuck. I totally just thought Izo was hot, didn't I? She groaned, already mentally chiding herself for being such a weak and pathetic kunoichi. Well, this is certainly an interesting development, Mikado said with a mischievous smirk, earning her the fearful gaze of Kurotsuchi. Izo will be very interested in knowing all about this. I might need to exaggerate a few minor details, but I'm sure the end result will be well worth the effort. Kurotsuchi stared at the woman with an expression of pure fear. You wouldn't, would you? She said shakily. Mikado's smirk stretched into a grin as her eyes morphed into her Mangekyo Sharingan, the space around her beginning to bend and contort. Of course I would, she said sweetly before disappearing completely. The Iwakunoichi sat in petrified horror for several seconds, contemplating on whether or not life would be worth living anymore. After several minutes, she simply gave up and resigned herself to her fate. If she was lucky, nothing would come of it. If she was unlucky, then she merely had to wait until her grandfather finally got her out of Konoha so that she didn't have to see any of the Uzumaki again. If by some divine fuck-up she was left stranded in Konoha, then she would probably kill someone and get a nice cozy prison cell all to herself, preferably one isolated enough so that she wouldn't need to kill anyone else unnecessarily. God, I hate this place, she muttered. Making herself comfortable on the lounge, she tried to go to sleep and wait around until she finally got some news on her situation, or at least until Izo got back and she could inquire on whether or not he did tattoos. For now though, she would just have to wait. Naruto reappeared in the middle of the Hokage's office, an action that barely earned him a sparing glance from the old man sitting at the desk. With a light scowl on his face, Naruto stomped over to one of the chairs placed in front of the Hokage's desk. Sitting down in the chair, he crossed his arms and glared at the Hokage irritably. When are we sending Kurotsuchi back to Iwa? He asked. We won't be sending her back, Hiruzen replied calmly as he went about signing several more of the documents that cluttered his desk. The blonde narrowed his eyes on the old man suspiciously. What do you mean by that? He asked. I mean that Kurotsuchi will not be getting sent back to Iwa, at least not really, the old man said in a cryptic tone. I received a letter from the Tsuchikage 2 days ago that expressed his apparent displeasure about what had transpired on the mission you had for a diplomatic peace offering. It appears that he had not allowed the mission to go through, but it was carried out under his nose by some of the Iwa council, so, what? His daughter is a traitor? Naruto asked with minimal interest. The young Namikaze was only slightly interested in the fact that Iwa was having some sort of political conflict within itself, but the fact was that he had more important things to care about. Until his heritage was revealed openly, he had no reason to have anything to do with Iwa, and even then, he doubted that it would be anything enjoyable. The chances were that they would either put a massive bounty on his head, or send Kunoichi after Kunoichi in a vain attempt to seduce him and breed more Namikaze children. Neither of those possibilities were to Naruto's liking. I have been told that although she did disobey his direct orders, Aniki is prepared to take her off our hands. He said it would be the only way to ensure that the people of Iwa don't, and I quote, throw a massive temper tantrum, Hiruzen said in amusement. Okay, that's good and all, but I need something more substantial to tell Kurotsuchi. She keeps finding ways to annoy either Izo or me in her never-ending boredom. She needs to know when she gets to leave so that she has something to look forward to, Naruto said. Well, Aniki has been invited to the Chunin exams, much to the annoyance of my dear old teammates. If my suspicions are correct, he will most likely show up to watch the exams and use that as an opportune moment to discuss things with me. I highly doubt that he will allow his granddaughter to remain as Konoha's, or rather the Uzumaki's captive, for much longer. The potential for a political fallout once your lineage is revealed is simply too high for us to risk, Hiruzen explained calmly. That is going to be a bigger shitstorm than when Konoha itself finds out. Actually, I think the reactions from any other village will be worse than that of Konoha. Everyone will start freaking out, thinking that I'll be ushering in a new era of absolute slaughter like Dad, Naruto said. Hopefully the other villages will be too fearful to try anything. I wouldn't bet on that, the Hokage grumbled, having enough life experience to know that stupidity often overruled even the wisest of decisions. Humans were extremely foolish like that. So you're saying that Kurotsuchi should be out of here by the end of the Chunin exams? Naruto asked, trying to clarify before he accidentally gave the Iwa Kunoichi false hope and got the shit kicked out of him for it. More or less, the Sarutobi said simply. Naruto groaned. That is almost 2 whole months. Hiruzen chuckled at the boy. You make it sound like having a girl trapped in your house is a bad thing. Do you realize how many boys your age would kill for an opportunity like that? He asked with a perverted glint in his eyes. That is not how we do things. Rape is punishable by death in almost every shinobi village in the elemental nations, you know that, Naruto said with a glare. True. But there is nothing against a captor seducing their captive. In fact, I'm pretty sure that most people have quite a bit of fun in doing so, Hiruzen said with a distant expression. Simpler times my days were, simpler times. You are a very creepy old man, you know that, right? Naruto stated monotonously. Your comment is duly noted and ignored. Now, is there anything else you want to ask me about? Anything you might need at all? The Hokage asked curiously. Naruto took a deep breath and looked at the old man seriously. I want to know why you never told me about my seal having a key. On top of that, I want to know why it wasn't given to me and Izo to help in my training, he said calmly. Hiruzen let out a deep sigh as he stopped looking over his paperwork. He knew that this day would eventually come, either through Naruto learning of it himself, as he appeared to have done, or through Izo having come to that conclusion while sifting through the complex maze that was Naruto's seal. Either way, he had not particularly been looking forward to having this conversation with the boy. Naruto, the fact of the matter is that your seal is not something anyone can risk playing around with. The Kyuubi must be contained within you, there is no debate about that. Therefore, we cannot risk the key falling into the wrong hands, he explained. So you're saying you don't trust me enough to give me the key? The blonde asked accusingly. No. I'm trying to say that I already gave it to someone who I thought I could trust with it, Hiruzen replied. Trust me, if I still had it, I would have no problem with handing it over to you. It is your right to have it after all. Unfortunately, I do not have it, nor do I think it will be returned anytime soon. Naruto furrowed his brow. Who did you give it to? My student, Jiraiya. As Konoha's best seal master at the time after Minato's death, I felt that he was the best suited to hold on to the key, and if we needed him to use it to tighten the seal's hold on the Kyuubi. After you began showing signs of controlling the Kyuubi's chakra to an adequate level, and after Izo made all the adjustments he could to the inner workings of the seal, I tried to contact Jiraiya and get him to come back and hand the key over to you, the Hokage said before sighing again and pinching the bridge of his nose. For some reason, he has been ignoring my requests, you know. Sometimes I really wonder why my parents made him my godfather. He just runs off and acts like a pervert all the time, no sense of responsibility in that man at all, Naruto muttered. You actually remind me a bit of him, Naruto. Of course, you are more mature than he ever was, but at heart, you are both very similar. Thankfully, you aren't perverted. I'm not sure if I would want to suffer through the beating your mother would dish out if I allowed you to become a pervert like Jiraiya. Hiruzen shuddered at the thought of that being the first thing he encountered in the afterlife. My mother sounds awesome, the Jinchuriki said with a snicker. But I'm still not happy about the key situation. I understand. Don't worry, I'll continue to try and get Jiraiya to answer my summons. For now, I would focus on the Chunin exams. After all, it is a perfect distraction, the old man said hintingly. Naruto's eyes shot open in understanding. Oh. Cool. I guess that'll move things forward a bit more than we were planning. Hey, do you think once it's all over I could maybe get some kind of honorary free ramen for life deal, you know, being the hero boy that holds the Kyuubi at bay and all, he said with perhaps a little too much pride. Hang on. Why the hell didn't I get that before? He yelled indignantly, glaring at the Hokage childishly. You let me grow up for 7 years without all the free ramen I deserved, you old bastard. Hiruzen deadpanned at the boy. Forget about what I said about you being more mature. I guess I should have expected this considering how your parents were, such restless, immature, and rowdy children they were, he mumbled, a fond smile on his face. Don't try and distract me, old man. You owe me ramen. Lots and lots of free delicious ramen, Naruto exclaimed childishly. The Hokage settled a cold stare on the blonde. Get out, he ordered simply. Naruto let his shoulders slump. Fine, he drawled. But you still owe me some ramen, he muttered with a pout before vanishing in a Hiruzen. Hiruzen shook his head and smiled at the young Namikaze's antics. It was always good to be reminded that Naruto was still, in fact, a child. He was always afraid that the training he and Danzo had put the boy through had somehow affected his state of mind, effectively ruining his childhood. Then again, it wasn't as if Naruto had a normal childhood beforehand. The fact that Naruto was even sane was a true testament to his willpower. Or perhaps it was just because the boy was extremely dense. Hiruzen wasn't sure. You should see your son now, Minato. You would be so proud, the old man said softly, glancing over to a picture of the late Yondaime, only for his expression to suddenly drop. I'm not too sure what you would think about your legally adopted son though, he said unsurely, thinking of how Minato and Izo would have interacted. Best not to think about that, I guess. Izo groaned as he tried desperately to remember why it was that he was waking up with a hangover, only to come up with a blank. Whatever his reasons were, he just hoped that they weren't too stupid or otherwise regrettable later on. Attempting to go back to sleep, with the intention of sleeping off his apparent mystery hangover, Izo buried his face back into his pillow, only for said pillow to moan out rather loudly. Izo froze in petrified horror as two slender arms wrapped themselves around his neck tightly and pulled his head snug up against the body he had mistaken for a pillow, a very well-endowed body he noticed. Surging his chakra through his coils as discreetly as physically possible, Izo went about cleansing himself of any traces of alcohol left in his system, his hangover gradually fading as well thanks to the magic that was medical ninjutsu. He blearily managed to remove himself from the person's embrace and raised himself up slightly. Looking down, he was met with the peaceful expression of a passed-out Anko. How she managed to look peaceful after passing out though, was something he was not sure about. Thank God, it's only you, he mumbled under his breath, letting out a very small sigh of relief. Unfortunately for him, that small sigh was all it took to wake up the incredibly dangerous and half-naked Anko. Why she was half-naked was beyond Izo's knowledge, but he was not about to complain about it. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. Izo quickly found himself in the awkward situation of being pinned down by an extremely angry kunoichi as she held one kunai to his throat and a second pointed at a far more concerning place. Anko, for her part, took a few seconds to actually wake up completely. Opening her eyes tiredly, she stared down at Izo and chuckled sheepishly as she withdrew the two kunai and placed them back under her pillows. Sitting up, she straddled Izo shamelessly and stretched her arms and back, yawning loudly as she went, giving Izo quite the show in the process. Sorry about that, she yawned out. You should probably remember never to wake me up, unless you wanted to lose something important to you, that is, she said. Duly noted, Izo said. Now would you mind explaining why I'm here? Anko grinned mischievously. You don't remember a thing from last night, do you? She asked with an almost vicious glimmer in her eyes. Not really, no. But considering I'm waking up in bed with a sexy kunoichi, who also happens to be mostly undressed, I am not seeing any grounds for complaints, he said with a shrug. An explanation would still be nice though. Well, it would be a little difficult to explain everything to you in words, Anko said thoughtfully. How about I try and do this in a very simple and easy to understand way? Raising her hand, Anko grinned mischievously. I present to you, the new member of the Uzumaki family, she said happily, showing off the elegant diamond ring on her finger. Your proposal was very romantic and extremely flattering too. Izo seemed to stare at her in mute shock. I proposed? He squeaked out in what Anko assumed was horror. Seriously? He asked worriedly. Anko snorted as she took off the ring and tossed it to the side. No, not really. That was just some ring I took from some stuck-up bitch I killed out on a mission. Don't worry, we aren't engaged, she said flippantly, earning a sigh of relief from Izo. However, there is something else you should know, she added. Izo was about to say something when Anko quickly interrupted him with a kiss that she quickly deepened beyond the point of simple teasing, which up until now, was what Izo thought was all that was happening between them. Now he was beginning to question things and wondered just what the fuck happened last night. Needless to say, this experience was going to either end his relationship with alcohol, or strengthen it immensely. After a few moments, they separated from their lip lock, Anko smiling evilly and Izo remaining in a minor state of shock. Whatever was happening, Izo just knew that somehow, at some time during the space of time he had blacked out, his drunk self had made what was amounting to be the greatest decision of his life. Unless you counted that one time when he accidentally walked into the female hot springs, only for the women inside to take pity on him for being blind and letting him stay. Good times those were. I'm going to assume that something did in fact happen between us, Izo finally said unsurely. You could say that, Anko said happily. But then again, you were very drunk, and I did drug you, so you can't really be held responsible for your actions. You drugged me? Anko's grin was more than enough answer to that question. Izo sighed. Okay. I'm still dressed, so I'm assuming nothing went further than kissing and maybe some groping. Keeping that in mind, I'm curious as to how you want to go from here, he said calmly. I'm more than willing to see if this works out, the kunoichi said simply, looking at Izo curiously. What about you? Am I required to do anything? Izo asked. Maybe just spend a little time with me, but that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.